So today, Bhagavatta Das will be initiated into Gayatri Mantra. This is called the Brahmana initiation. So the real significance of the Brahmana initiation is expressed in a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, text 24. I'd like to read this verse in purport by Srila Prabhupada and then very briefly explain this so that you can understand the meaning of what you're seeing here today. The verse reads, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnau Brahmana Hutam Brahmaivatina Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. So please repeat. Brahma, spiritual in nature. Arpanam, contribution. Brahma, the supreme. Havi, butter. Brahma, spiritual. Agnau, in the fire of consummation. Brahmana, by the spirit soul. Kutam, offered. Brahma, spiritual kingdom. Eva, certainly. Tena, by him. Gantavyam, to be reached. Brahma, spiritual. Karma, in activities. Samadhina, by complete absorption. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Purport. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness and all of them will be described in the following verses, but for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. A conditioned soul entangled in material contamination is sure to act in the material atmosphere. And yet he has to get out of such an environment. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely curds. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness as set forth here in the Gita. This process is generally known as yajna, or activities, sacrifices, simply meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness, or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahma, means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahma Jyoti, his spiritual effulgence. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahma Jyoti. But when the Jyoti is covered by illusion, Maya, or sense gratification, it is called material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together, Brahman, or the absolute truth. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter dovetailed in the cause of the absolute truth regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman, or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna, or sacrifice for the Absolute. In that condition of spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, the performer or leader of the performance, and the result or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the Absolute, the Supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. Shri Gurun Dina Charanam. So in this verse, the word Brahma appears again and again. The Supreme Lord, Krishna, He is Brahman, Para-Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, as explained here. Brahman means spirit. And the living entity, the Jiva, we are all living beings or souls. So we are also Brahman, not Para-Brahman, not Supreme Brahman. But we are emanations from the Supreme Brahman. Like sparks emanate from this fire, or like rays of sunlight emanate from the sun. So the quality is the same. What is that quality? Satchitananda. The quality of Brahman is that it's eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. And that we all are in our original nature. But as Srila Prabhupada explains, that Brahman, the Jiva, the spirit soul, can become covered by illusion, by the matter, Maya. And thus we think ourselves to be, instead of Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit soul, we think of ourselves to be material body. We think of ourselves to be Swedish or American or Bulgarian or Czech or Russian, or whatever. These are illusory designations. Illusory, why? Why illusory? Because they're temporary. As Brahman, we are eternal. Identifying with this body is simply a temporary notion. Temporarily, we think, I am Swedish. That conception can only last as long as we have this Swedish body or whatever kind of body it is. And at some point, death takes this body away. And by our karma, what we have done in that life, we are awarded another body. Maybe the body of a fish. Swedes like to eat fish, so why not? And then you think, I'm a fish for some period of time. And then that body changes, and on and on. So this is Upadi Bhuta. This is Bhuta. The word root is Bhu, which is related in Sanskrit, but it's our European languages are called also Indo-European because they can be traced, the roots can be traced to Sanskrit. So Bhu means, translated into English, to be. And they sound similar, being. So Upadi Bhuta. So this means that I think I am, or I think that I be, the Upadi, the designation, the covering. Upadi refers to this body, the external conception, Upadi Bhuta. So one who has accepted Upadi Bhuta conception, he's obliged by that sense of identity to experience birth, old age, disease, death, repeatedly. In other words, to suffer, samsara dukkha, to suffer this material existence in the cycle of repeated birth and death. So, in this human form of life, Srila Prabhupada explains, just by taking the human body, we already become a little bit Brahman realized, a little bit Krishna conscious. Just to have this human body. How is that? Because we become aware that we are persons. The jiva, the soul, is not in essence impersonal. Many people think like that because of the forefront of knowledge. But actually the jiva in essence is parusha. Parusha means person. And when one gets a human form of life, this human body is considered, everyone considers it, to be the highest form of body. From the Vedic point of view, the reason it's the highest form is that in this form we can get a glimpse of our personal nature. Of course, if one is very attached to the body, he equates person with the body. That's a mistake. The person, the personality, the persona is actually the soul. The desires, the sense of identity, all of that originate from consciousness. So the consciousness is allowed in this human body a glimpse of its own nature, just a glimpse. Now, the human form of life is an opportunity to develop that glimpse into a complete vision, a complete understanding. So, therefore, one should become Brahmana in the human form of life. Brahmana means Brahmagyani iti Brahmana. One who knows, knows scientifically, knows by realization that he is spirit and not the body. Iti Brahmana, he's called a Brahmana. If you, I'm sure, have taken in school religion classes and they teach you about Hinduism in the school and they tell you that Brahmins are a caste in India, a priestly caste. But this is not actually the real definition of Brahmana, because a caste means some group, family group or whatever it may be, some caste in society. That's referring to the body only. But the word Brahman means spirit. Brahmagyaniti Brahmana. And a Brahmana, one who's actually Brahmana, is one who knows, I am spirit. So how can the definition of Brahmana be restricted to some type of body, some particular body born in a particular family? This is not a valid understanding. Especially, of course, one is born in a pure Brahmin family, wherein the tradition of Brahminical understanding is preserved, wherein the father educates the son and the daughter in spiritual knowledge, then that can be called proper Brahminical culture also. You can actually say this is a truly Brahminical family, because in that family there is spiritual knowledge. But if you go to India today and look at the Brahmana caste, you will find, unfortunately, for the most part, they have become just like everyone else. In Brahmin families today, the children are sent off to the university to learn to become accountants and scientists and technicians and this and that. So what is the question of Brahmagyan, Brahminical knowledge? This is material knowledge. So therefore, it will not be accepted in true Vedic circles. Those who are actually truly followers of the Vedas, simply birth into a caste, will not be accepted as Brahmana. There's a story of a goldsmith in India. As you know, goldsmith is a person who fashions articles out of gold. So a wealthy man came to him and brought him a big piece of gold and said, I want you to make a pot, a nice ornate pot for me out of this lump of gold. And this wealthy man, he was wealthy and he was powerful. And he knew that the goldsmiths, they like to cheat. If they receive gold and are told to fashion it into an object, they always like to, use some part to make the object, but keep a bit for themselves. So he warned this goldsmith that I know precisely how much this weighs. And when I come to collect the pot, it better weigh the same. Don't try to cheat me. So then the goldsmith, he said, yes, of course, I'm not a cheater. Why do you even suggest such a thing? But of course he was a cheater. So then he began to scheme. It won't be easy with this man, because he knows what we goldsmiths are like. So I can't use the usual trick of cutting some gold away or just gold plating some piece of brass. He'll be able to tell. So how to do this? So then he considered, I have to give him a pot that at the end has the same weight. So in India, they also, besides making pots out of metals, and there's also pots that are made out of stone. Stone pots and plates and cups one can also find. Certain kind of dark, grayish black stone. And of course stone is very heavy. So then he got a stone pot and he tested, experimented, and he found he could plate it. The word plate it. So then he worked all night and he plated the stone pot. The next day, the wealthy aristocratic gentleman came, and with a big smile, the goldsmith brought out his gold-plated stone pot. Just test it, sir. You'll see I used all the gold to make this pot. Now the thing is, a stone pot is very easily recognized. It has a particular, very simple shape, because you can't do much with hard stone. And also, there are little bumps on it because it's stone. So this rich man was not a fool. And he looked, he could see that this is a stone pot just covered with a film of gold. So he said, man, are you crazy? What are you trying to do here? I asked for a golden pot. What is this you're giving me? And the goldsmith said, oh, it's a golden stone pot. You see? A golden stone pot. In other words, what he's trying to say is that I took the gold and I fashioned it into a pot that looks just like a stone pot. So the rich man just picked up the stone pot and hit the goldsmith over the head with it. The rascal, I treat him. So this plea, golden stone pot. The point of this story, actually, it's to illustrate the ridiculousness of a person trying to claim himself to be a Brahmana, while at the same time being in bodily consciousness. There's no such thing as a golden stone pot. This is just some weird combination of words by which one is trying to excuse some duplicity. So similarly, for a person to be in material consciousness, identifying with the body, and at the same time trying to proclaim himself as a Brahmana, this is just a contradiction of terms, like a golden stone pot. It will not be accepted. So what a Brahmana is described here. One who is fully absorbed in Brahmana, whose activities, Brahma karma, his karma, his activities, the activities, although he's in this body, he has this body, but his activities in this body are Brahmana, spiritual. And what are these activities? It is explained here. Yajna. Now we are going to have a yajna, sacrifice. The words here, Brahmagna, are used in the fire of consummation. So we are going to make a fire here shortly. Vedic yajna, sacrifice. Now, this fire is actually the tongue of Lord Vishnu. By mantras, Lord Vishnu is invited. Because Lord Vishnu is, actually the name Vishnu means all-pervading. So he is all-pervading. God is everywhere. That is a fact. He is within every atom. But he is evoked. His presence manifests when there is yajna, when there is sacrifice. It is not that we can consider that all of our activities are divine because God is everywhere. No, specifically, the point being made in this verse is that God, Krishna, appears in our life, in our activities, to receive our offering. Brahmagna Brahmana Hutam. Just like he appears as the fire to receive the Brahmana Huta. Huta means the offering of ghee. We have ghee, clarified butter, that will be poured into the fire. So this is the activity of a Brahmana. A Brahmana is actually one who can invoke the Supreme Lord Vishnu and make offerings to the Lord, which are received by the Lord. And these offerings are, this whole process of offering and consummation is meant for everyone's benefit. In Vedic culture, this was the position of Brahmana. Brahmana was the person who connected society. Because society is composed, of course, of many people who are not Brahmanas, who are simply not spiritually developed. They're not really interested so much in spiritual life. So in Varnashram Dharma society, the society of Vedic civilization, the Shudras, or the ordinary workers, the Vaishyas, the businessmen, and the farmers, and the Kshatriyas, the administrators, government, military, police. These are the different classes. They would ultimately all be servants of the Brahmanas, because the Brahmanas were the link to the Supreme Lord, Krishna, through yajna. So all of society was meant to contribute to yajna by offering charity to the Brahmanas, which would be employed in sacrifice. And the sacrifice, when received by the Supreme Lord, benefited, the result of sacrifice benefited all of society. And particularly the Brahmanas were meant to distribute this benediction. And the main benediction, the foremost benediction that the Brahmanas offer society is, again, Brahmagyan, spiritual knowledge. The main business of Brahmana, Brahmana is also, he's said to be the, in the universal form, the universe is sometimes compared to the form of God too. And the different classes, the different varnas in society occupy positions in that form. The Shudras are the legs, the Vaishyas are the belly, the Kshatriyas are the arms, and the Brahmana is the head. So what does head mean? Head means brain, knowledge. Head also means mouth. Now, mouth does two things. It eats. So this is the point where Brahmanas are supposed to receive charity. The rest of society, they support the Brahmana. They feed the Brahmanas. Brahmana Bhoja. In India, this is still a very, very fundamental aspect of what we call Hindu society. Brahmana Bhoja. The Brahmanas are invited to people's homes and they're fed. Because the Brahmana, if he's a real Brahmana, he's doing everything only for Krishna. So he also eats for Krishna. So actually, by feeding a Brahmana, one is pleasing Krishna. But, even more important, but eating is very important, we all know that. But more important for a Brahmana than eating, and the eating is not for sense gratification. That's the point. He eats for Krishna. He eats to benefit others, actually. They feed him for their own purification. But even more important than that, the more important function of the mouth is that it speaks. So Brahmana is meant to give transcendental knowledge. Now, as I said, we're all Brahmana. We're all spirit soul. It's just a question of whether we know it or not. The position of the living entity who's in this, instead of Brahma-bhuta consciousness, in Upadhi-bhuta consciousness, the conception of the body. He's like a diseased person, a person with fever. When a person becomes very feverish with some disease, then he may have amnesia. He may have hallucinations. He may imagine himself in his disease to be something or someone that he's not. His near and dear relatives may be gathered around him. He's in the sick bed, and they're They're nursing him, they're caring for him, and he opens his eyes and sees their faces, he can't recognize them. Or because his mind is deranged, he hallucinates that they look like monsters. His mother is screaming, "Get away from me, you beast!" It's his own mother, she's trying to help him. But because he's in a diseased condition, he doesn't remember that she's his mother. He may hallucinate that she's some vampire, who knows what. So, this is our state of mind when we're in bodily consciousness. We don't know who we are. We've forgotten who we are due to spiritual amnesia, and we're hallucinating by the influence of Maya that we're something else, that we're this body. And yet we're all Brahman, we're all spirit soul. And as I said, in this human form of life, the mission is to realize that. So how can one realize Aham Brahmasmi, that I am Brahman? Now after this verse, text 24, Krishna gives a number of verses in which he explains different processes by which people attain this Brahman understanding. And he mentions taking to the life of brahmachari. Brahmachari means celibate renunciate, celibate spiritualist. Yoga is mentioned. And pranayama, control of the breath. This is one of the disciplines within yoga. And there's a number of other methods, mystical methods mentioned. But then, Sri Krishna in text 34, he brings, after mentioning all these different ways of trying to become Brahman, he explains the method by which anyone and everyone, if they take to this process, their success is assured. In other words, this is the method that Krishna himself personally recommends. After mentioning so many other methods, which we may or may not be able to do, actually, for those of us born in Western culture, it is quite certain that we won't be able to become Brahman realized by breath control or by some other yoga, mystic yoga process. Because we just don't have the stamina for that. People, of course, they make a fad out of yoga. There are yoga classes where you are told by the teacher that if you practice yoga, then you'll sleep better, lose weight, and this sort of thing. But this is just a farce. The real practice of yoga is something beyond, it is beyond the capacity of even most people in India, what to speak of, people born outside of India, born in this culture of sense gratification, sensual pleasure. So, we should conclude that these processes mentioned here by Krishna are not open to us. So then, if we're actually spirit soul, that's what we are, and our mission is to realize that, then how do we do it? So here, take text 34, Krishna explains. A very famous verse. A verse everyone learns. In our Krishna consciousness movement, probably everybody. This is, if not the first, it's the second or third verse of Bhagavad Gita that everyone learns. Tad vidi pranipratena pariprashanena sevya upadekshanti te jnana jnana tattvadarshana. Just try to attain this knowledge, tad vidi. This knowledge, this Brahma Jnana, by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. And then in the next verse, Krishna explains very clearly what this Brahman realization means. Having obtained real knowledge from the self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion, for by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. So this Brahmagyan, knowledge of Brahman, is given by a spiritual master to a disciple. And that is the purpose of this initiation. It's not, of course it has its ceremonial or ritualistic aspect, but we should not think that this is the This is the sum and substance of it, just some ritual. Actually, the ritual is called in Sanskrit skanda. Skanda means impression. It's simply to make an impression in our minds that something important is happening here. This is the purpose of this, what you're about to see, this fire ceremony, to impress us that something important is happening. What is that? That Bhagavata Prabhu will be accepted by the spiritual master. Prabhupada explained in our movement, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. You see, we have two levels of initiation. What we call first initiation and second initiation. Or the second initiation is also Brahman initiation. The first initiation is Harinam Diksha, when the disciple receives the holy name, Hare Krishna mantra from the Guru, the beads, the japa beads, in which he chants the Hare Krishna mantra, and his spiritual name. So Srila Prabhupada said that this initiation, the disciple accepts the spiritual master. And the second initiation, the Brahminical initiation, in which for the male students, the thread, this Brahminical thread, is awarded, is placed on the body. Srila Prabhupada said at this initiation, the spiritual master accepts the disciple. So one who wears this thread, Srila Prabhupada explains that this is the sign that he has a spiritual master, that he has been accepted by a spiritual master. This thread, you'll see, even Lord Krishna, he wears this thread. This is from where the tradition of the Brahmana thread comes. That Sri Krishna himself wears this thread. This thread is actually, on Krishna's body, is a form of an Anantashesh. Anantashesh, you've probably seen the pictures of Lord Vishnu seated or laying upon the snake couch. So this is Anantashesh. Now, Anantashesh is an expansion of Balaram, Krishna and Balaram, the two original forms of Godhead, Lord Krishna and his brother Balaram. So Balaram, or here we see Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. This is the same Krishna and Balaram who came 500 years ago to preach this mission of Krishna consciousness, chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, Sankirtan movement. So Nityananda, Balaram, is known as the Adi Guru, the original spiritual master. So Lord Krishna wears this Brahmana thread because this is a form of the original spiritual master, the original Guru. And Lord Krishna wears this to show us the importance, the absolute necessity of having a spiritual master. Even Krishna himself, in his childhood pastimes, youthful pastimes, he accepts spiritual masters, Sandipani Muni. So, when one accepts spiritual master, the relationship, the function of this relationship is to receive from the spiritual master transcendental knowledge. And the effect of this transcendental knowledge is explained here in text 37 of chapter 4. As a blazing fire turns firewood into ashes, so does a fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. So this is the real purpose here. That the link of transcendental knowledge is being established. And by this link of transcendental knowledge, all of the disciples' karma, his material activities, are burned up in the fire of spiritual knowledge. That means that the disciple is expected to hear from the Guru, understand from the Guru how to serve Krishna, and then surrender himself completely to that service. Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagnam, Brahmanavatam. This verse is declaring this point. That one who is fully situated in Krishna consciousness, Brahma Karma Samadhina, who is absorbed in Brahma Karma, spiritual activities, then he has no more material designation. Again, referring to this golden stone pot. No, there's no such thing as a Swedish Brahmin, as an Indian Brahmin, as a Bulgarian Brahmin. Because this Upadhi designation is referring to karma. A Brahmana is a Brahmana, one who knows Brahman. And he receives this knowledge from his spiritual master. And that knowledge burns up all reactions to previous material activities. So, anyway, there's a lot more that could be said about this, but we have to get on with the sacrifice. So take what I said as the introduction. So now, if everyone will simply chant Hare Krishna mantra, japa, I will make arrangements to start the fire here. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.